Your heart is free. Have the courage to follow it. Now, I think of that in life. I think about that with my family, about the people I love. I also think about that in business. Your heart is free. You have the choice to do anything you want to do. And so figure out what it is, align, find your lane, find that place that you're meant to be with your purpose and your passion, and be so committed to getting it done that nothing can stop you.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. This is your host Neha at leaderinterview.
peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view, integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Awards that's specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and channel, which receives more than 400,000 visitors a year, and we publish several interviews with well-known names globally every month.
We have with us today Ian Selbie. Ian has delivered his proven sales methodology to over 17,000 sales professionals around the globe. His client list ranges from well-known multinationals to smaller, more regional companies. Ian's clients have witnessed a number of sustainable benefits from his services, which include increased forecasting accuracy, increased customer loyalty, less sales turnover, which include more effective hiring, and of course, increased margins and revenues. He specializes in areas of training, coaching, and consulting. Prior to launching his own business, Ian held sales and leadership roles with Apple Computer from 1984 to 1994. In 1990, Apple recognized Ian as their top salesperson in the world for his success in large accounts in Western Canada. Ian has also authored a number of books and guides, including If You Were Arrested for Selling, Would There Be Enough Evidence to Convict You? That's absolutely amazing, Ian. That sounds like a very, very interesting title that I can't wait to learn more about. And we have a bunch of other things that we can't wait to ask you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Sneha. It's a pleasure to be here. It truly is. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you, Ian. So for a whopping 25 years, you've been a speaker, trainer, and coach, as well as an author and podcaster at salesmentoryou.com. That's very impressive. Could you tell us more about your work?
Absolutely. The reason I got into the business over 25 years ago, as you pointed out, I attended a business seminar and a bunch of different keynote speakers who were authors and business leaders. And one of the speakers really hit me between the eyes in terms of the message. And it was really about, am I living my passion? Am I doing what my purpose is? And I felt at that point like I was renting my resume to the highest bidder. Instead of following my heart, I was chasing my wallet. And so at that point, the very next day I resigned and I started my business around training, coaching, and consulting people and companies to reach their potential. It truly is my passion. And I think if we can align ourselves with what our passion is, we can do it a very, very long time, and we'll enjoy doing it because it was meant for us. So certainly everything I've done, books, guides, training, coaching, online, in person, it's all about my purpose and passion, which is to help salespeople reach their potential.
It is definitely very interesting to hear people talk about their passion and how it aligns with the work that you do, because it certainly takes a certain amount of courage and also self-belief, self-confidence to know that you have what it takes to get there. And it's absolutely wonderful to see people enjoying the work that they do so much, like you do. That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you. And it does take courage. I remember when I started the business, I had 4 young children at home with a stay-at-home wife and a big mortgage. And I was really giving it my all to make sure I could provide for my family. So it did take some courage for sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that our viewers and listeners seeing you talk today about all of this, seeing as whether they are in the same position, I'm sure they'll be inspired. They'll be inspired a lot.
Yeah, we all play different roles in the world. And I think you're right. I think you nailed it, Sneha, that if we can align our passion, our purpose with what our profession is, then great things are possible instead of just, another day at work, another day at the office. You should be, can't wait to go do what I do because I love what I do. Right. So it's hard to get that alignment, but once you find it, boom.
Absolutely. And work is such a huge part of our life. We even now more during the pandemic, we've been aligning a lot of hours to work than we otherwise were doing. So I feel like that's a very huge part of our life, and it's very important to know that we're enjoying what we're doing because we're spending the most time doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we want to do a good job and have a sense of gratitude and appreciation. And also we want to do it for a long time. So it's important to pick the right lane, not just get on any road, right?
Absolutely. So as a trainer and a coach, I'm sure that the quality of influence is something that you have always given utmost importance to. So when we speak about good leadership, influence cannot be overlooked. So what are your thoughts on that?
Leadership, and there's so many different styles of leadership out there, and leadership circles around what makes a good leader versus what makes a boss. And there's conflicting arguments in the market out there. You mentioned in my intro, I had the pleasure of working for Apple from 1984 to 1994 and had a wonderful time. And at that point, I was witness to Steve Jobs' leadership, and certainly something that inspired me, not just the vision for the products and how he wanted to make a dent in the universe and change the world, but how he shared that message. So from a leadership standpoint, I think there's a couple there that, yes, a vision, but without inspiring people to drive the vision, it's still really okay, great. But having the vision and his ability to communicate it in a way that made it our personal cause to change the world, one computer at a time, certainly that inspirational communication technique with the vision is a very powerful combination. And I haven't seen it since in the world of leadership. There's been pieces, and everyone brings something to the table, but those two things really inspired me for sure.
Absolutely, and I can imagine what a time it must have been. It must have been amazing working under his guidance.
It truly was. I had the honor once of meeting him in person at a sales conference in Hawaii, and shook his hand, and we chatted about skiing at Whistler for 10 minutes. And one of my colleagues from the office took a picture, and I got the picture. And this is back in 1985 or something. Yeah. So we didn't have the technology yet, but I had it blown up and framed and put in my cubicle. I later used the picture to put it in a few of my books and guides. So I didn't know what I needed it for. I was just such an enthusiast of Steve Jobs at the time.
I can imagine. That must have been wonderful. And to follow up on what we just spoke about, what do you think leaders can do to be great influencers?
Well, this is the key is ensuring that you build people, build leaders underneath you. There's a lot of tests out there. Are you a leader or are you a boss? And if you're truly going to be an inspired leader, then you have to understand that you're growing people. You'll never get there by yourself. You need a great team to get you there. So you need to build leadership underneath you. And that cream will rise and the whole company will go in that direction. Simple things like appreciation and recognition for people's effort and results goes such a long, long way when it comes to leadership. And it's free. It's not something that costs you a lot of money or time. It's appreciation. It's having that type of DNA in the company where gratitude and recognition can live, and people will aspire to be their best in that condition.
Exactly. And when you say leader, what is a leader without his followers, right? Followers are what makes the leader. So
absolutely. And the smart leaders are building that next generation of leaders so that it can be sustained and ongoing. And great leaders also know when to step out of the way and let someone else lead. Someone may have developed or matured at a different pace, and it's time to give them more power and influence as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful insight. So for our viewers and listeners, Ian, when would you say is the right time to consider coaching?
The coach in question, and it's very much in vogue today. Everyone's got a coach at something. And when you think about it in life, we have fitness coaches, we have health coaches, we have wealth coaches, people that help us manage our money and be accountable. And in business, leadership, and in sales, it's the same there. There's never a bad time to have a coach. Certainly, if you're serious about being your best at something, then you would explore any avenue to improve yourself. So there's conditions for growth that work, and there's conditions for growth that don't work. So I could answer the question from the other side, and if someone's not able to be vulnerable and be honest and truthful with a coach, and let themselves be held accountable, then they're not ready for growth. They're not ready to be coached. So it takes a bit of courage to be coached as well. But when do we make it our best is when we're challenged. I think the single biggest word a coach provides us with in any walk of life is accountability. Yeah, the days I used to run half marathons, and training was a 3 or 4 day a week effort. And I would run with a colleague at the office in my company, and there would be often days at 3:30 when we would go for a run that I was deep into a proposal or working on content for a training program. And he would show up in my office with his running gear on and say, okay, let's go. We said we were going to run. And I could think of lots of excuses. It's raining, it's cold out, I don't feel like running. But that accountability drove results. Yeah. And so it's like that in anything. I think it's all about accountability.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful when you have somebody to be accountable to for your own success. I feel like that makes a world of a difference.
Absolutely. And there are coaches out there that are expert in what it is they do. So they have not just the accountability, but the content and the whole horizon of what someone's working within. But people can also be peer accountable. People who are on a same team can hold each other accountable to bring out the best in them. So there's lots of way to drink the coaching Kool-Aid, if you want to call it that.
Absolutely. So that means coaching does not have to be looked at from a particular angle, which brings me to my follow-up question on that, because you also just mentioned that, it takes a lot of courage to realize that you need coaching. So as per your experience, are there any prejudices working professionals hold about career coaching, and how can they be avoided if so?
I think, there's probably some stereotyping out there that, although today to a lesser degree, I think it's in vogue. I have a coach, and so that's a common thing we hear, and so it's about being selective about who would be the appropriate coach for you. After all, we don't do it for free. It's a paid service like anything, and you get what you pay for. Some people, and it could be ego that gets in the way of this. Some people, I don't need a coach. I've been doing this for many years. And so their ego could be self-prejudice around them not allowing themselves to broaden their horizon and grow. If companies are going to grow, the people in the companies need to grow. So it goes, you can't just expect something to happen if you're not going to make it happen. And so that can be a prejudice, that people get in the way of themselves at times.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to see, somebody who has worked in the industry for a long time talk about this, because one can only imagine what it must be like for people who go up to coaches, let's say what circumstances they're in, but it's often not all that it's made out to be. And it's wonderful to hear that from you, because I'm sure that a lot of our listeners and viewers might be considering coaching at some point in their life. And this is definitely insight that's very helpful.
And coaching has, this tragic pandemic we're all living in and living through, knock on wood, has taught the world some new tricks with technology. And most of my coaching used to be in person, used to be teams or one-on-one with the leaders. With Zoom, with the technology we're using right now, Shanae, the coaching, a lot of my coaching today is one-on-one Zoom sessions with people, which is less. I think it's easier to take the coaching in this format because it also broadens your reach. And anyone could coach anyone around the world at any time of day. So it's made it easier to distribute coaching and easier for people to get it because of the technology.
Absolutely. So moving on, having been a sales executive at Apple yourself, and since you host your own podcast that enlightens its listeners about sales, we'd love to hear some tips from you.
Absolutely. And as you said, I've got a 2-day course that teaches a complete selling framework, sales leadership framework. I've got an 8-module online training program on my website as well for people can take it at home like we're doing now with Zoom. As well, books and podcasts and guides, as you said. I even have a few free guides on my website, the 7 deadly sins in selling. So the 7 things to stop doing, and that's free. So there's some free resources on there for people. Feel free to help yourselves, serve yourself on that one. But if I could summarize just a small tip for the selling profession at large, I think there's 4 things. Number 1 is call high. So call on decision-making levels first. Don't get stuck with influencers. Influencers can't say yes. They can only say no. Although they may let you think they have all the power and autonomy, seldom is that the case. So call it at the decision-making level first. That's call high, number 1. Number 2, find their pain. So the worst thing a salesperson can do is bring their product and their service and try and push it to a customer. That's just selling something. And the world is tired of that. So I like to say, find the business pain. So be a bit like a doctor. If you went to your doctor's office for your annual checkup and they said, here's some pills for you, they'll help you, have a good year, see you next year, I wouldn't go back to that doctor. What does a doctor do? He diagnoses. She diagnoses the situation, finds out what's your eating behavior, what's your exercise, how are you feeling. So there's some diagnosis. So same in selling. Consultative selling is all about find the pain. Thirdly, bring the gain, solve the problem. Then you can craft your product or your services in a way that aligns with the business pain. So call high, find the pain, bring the gain, and the 4th one, it's almost like it rhymes, do it again. What do I mean by do it again? Is follow up. Proactive account management is not an accident. Don't wait for the customer to call you up and pretend or think they might need something more. A professional salesperson needs to have the schedule and the process, aided by some tools, to help do a proactive account review to make sure the customer is satisfied. The stats I've been keeping on this for over 25 years, when we do good account management, we find another deal with the existing customer 50% of the time. So our very best prospects are our existing customers if we treat them with honor and loyalty. And that's certainly so. Call high, find the pain, bring your gain, then do it again and again. That there's a tip for the audience right there.
That's absolutely wonderful. I love the parallel that you drew between a diagnosis and understanding the pain point of the customer, because I feel like this is especially an age, I don't know if the pandemic has accelerated it, but this is an age where everybody knows what they want and they will not settle for anything less than that. So I feel like this is exactly the strategy that all of us need right now.
It is. And when we've all been the buyer, we've all been the customer at some point of our life, right? And when someone has taken the time to invest in the knowledge and understanding of my business or my needs, I already have a degree of respect for them. Absolutely. And they're invested in the process. So every customer witnesses that. It's the same in business to business selling. Find the pain. In fact, the more you can research, so you're right, the technology's at our fingertips. We can look up websites, we can look people up on LinkedIn and find out who they are, what might be going on in their company before we even approach them. Absolutely,
absolutely. That's a wonderful thing to remember for all of us, irrespective of whether we're in the sales domain right now, because that's absolutely wonderful advice.
I'm glad you're liking it. It does work. I've been doing it a long time and it does work.
Yes, I believe you, Ian. And lastly, do you have a quote that best defines your feelings towards the future of work, workplace, and you?
It's interesting. That is such a big topic. That could be a whole nother episode.
Yes, it could be.
Great, inspiring quotes. And there's so many in books and podcasts that I still listen to. I think back to my roots, and I was born in Scotland, so I'm a Scottish fellow. And okay. I think of William Wallace, otherwise known as Braveheart in the movies. And he had a number of inspiring quotes. one of which he heard in a dream, and it was his father speaking to him. And I don't know about you, but I always think back to things my father has said to me, and they stick to me really, really deep. But his father said to him, "Your heart is free. Have the courage to follow it." Now, I think of that in life. I think about that with my family, about the people I love. I also think about that in business. Your heart is free. You have the choice to do anything you want to do. And so figure out what it is, align, find your lane, find that place that you're meant to be with your purpose and your passion, and be so committed to getting it done that nothing can stop you. It truly is. I have a quote that I like to say, that inside of every salesperson is a better one. Find your better one and reach your potential.
Wow, that is absolutely inspiring, Ian. And I know I said that this was the last question, but like I said during the introduction, there's one thing that I really want to learn about. So you have a book that is called "If You Were Arrested for Selling, Would There Be Enough Evidence to Convict You?" We'd love to know the story behind that.
Yes, I certainly do. And it was years ago. I think that the year must have been 1996. I started my business in 95, doing some training and coaching. And some of my clients were like, "You should write a book." And, I wasn't even that good at reading books in school. So write a book. So I decided to commit myself to something that I wasn't used to. And I wrote a 10-chapter book. And I needed it. In the book, I talk about the framework. So all of the things that go into making a complete system. That's what I provide, really, is a system on how to become a sustained, successful salesperson. Not just another book on a shelf, but something you can be in your behavior, not as a book. It's distributed as a book. And now there's ebooks and all those things, and you can consume the product that way. But I needed a title. So I decided to get a little cheeky with the title. And because I like asking this question to CEOs that I'm talking to. If your sales force were arrested for selling, would there be enough evidence to convict them? And quite often I hear two or three of them, absolutely. They'd be doing life for great sales. The rest, I'd like to fire them and start over. Can you help me? So it was one of my favorite questions to ask. So I decided to name the book that. If you were arrested for selling, would there be enough evidence to convict you?
Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful. I don't think we could have ended that note on a more fun and better note than that. Ian, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you, talking to a fellow podcaster, and it's been absolutely amazing listening to the insights that you hold in the industry. I'm sure that our viewers and listeners will definitely agree with me when I say that this was a very, very insightful conversation. Thank you so much for being here, for taking the time to share your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Sneha. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this.
Us too. Thank you. Have a great day ahead.